Hey y'all, Tink here. On August 12th, 2023, I spent one day in Jemez Springs. This was part of a 3-day road trip from North Carolina to Colorado, and it made for a really great day trip, so I wanted to share that itinerary with you. Headed north out of Albuquerque, you're going to head toward Jemez Springs, which is off of New Mexico 4. Our first destination for the day was the Red Rock Trail at Walatowa Slot Canyon, which is on the sovereign nation of the Jemez Pueblo. This was just an absolutely fantastically gorgeous trail. You do have to stop at the visitor center and pay a $7 fee for a hiking permit. 100% worth it. I don't always like to hike trails that cost money to hike. I really pride myself in hiking as a free activity, and so I go to places that don't cost money. But in this situation, I felt that it was justified because the people of the Jemez Pueblo spend a lot of resources and time maintaining this trail and protecting it because it is considered a sacred place to their people. And then they choose to share it with the public. And I think that, charging a $7 entrance fee is totally reasonable. I had never been in a slot canyon before, and I was just blown away by these rock formations and by the textures and the colors of the landscape. It was just mind boggling. So, we spent a good bit of time hanging around, taking pictures, taking videos, obviously, before hiking back to the visitor center and having a picnic lunch. The total hike length that I recorded for this hike all the way into the Slot Canyon was 1.68 miles with 99 feet of ascent. So it was a pretty flat trail, pretty easy, well marked, well maintained, super, super clean. 100% recommend a stop here. The total hike time took us about an hour before we headed back to the visitor center and moved on to our next destination. After a quick picnic lunch, we headed further up the road to the Gilman tunnels. I did a little bit of research on this trail prior to visiting, and I found it on all trails, which I thought was kind of weird because I thought it was a road. And then I did a little bit more research and realized that sometimes this road is closed, and so people hike in, and that's why it was listed on there. But this time of year, the road was open and you can drive through the tunnels. These tunnels go past the Guadalupe River box canyon, and so that you can see people standing on the side of the road here looking down at the river. This was just an absolutely incredible stretch of road. The tunnels were super cool. It turns out that they've been filmed in several Hollywood movies, and it's a popular filming location. It's also obviously a popular tourist location for obvious reasons. We drove out as far as we could to the end of the road and then turned around and drove back through the tunnels back to New Mexico 4 to head on further up into Jemez Springs. Leaving Gilman Tunnels, we passed by some interesting scenery while headed back to New Mexico 4, including this old graveyard. On the way to our next destination, which is going to be the Soda Dam Springs. Now, this isn't really the kind of springs that you can swim in. Instead, it is a natural geological formation formed by calcium carbonate deposits from a spring that kind of bubbles up in this part of the river. It used to be larger than what you see now, and there's a little waterfall that kind of falls through it. Unfortunately, part of the dam was destroyed for the building of the road that we drove in on, but it's still a really cool geological feature worth checking out. Our final stop on our day trip to Jemez Springs was Spence Hot Spring, which I'm going to call Spence Warm Spring. It stays at about 95 degrees year round. A short hike of 0.72 miles round trip and 112 feet of ascent takes you to this lovely hot spring overlooking a fantastic mountain view. It is a popular place. We shared it with several other groups of people and a bunch of kids, which, isn't really my thing. But it was absolutely gorgeous and worth the hike. It is worth noting that the hike down and then back up is pretty steep. Even though it's short, it can be considered a little bit strenuous and the footing can be a little bit tricky. Also, do be aware that this and several surrounding springs are considered clothing optional, and make sure that you are prepared for that if you decide to visit. After leaving the hot springs, we were ready to head on to Durango, which is our final destination for the day. And I decided that we would take New Mexico 126 over to Cuba, New Mexico, which looked like a pretty direct route from where we were at. I had no idea it was a dirt road, but apparently it is a through road, and it was pretty well maintained. There were some rough areas, but we saw some like box trucks and delivery trucks on it, and a couple of really big trucks. So it's pretty passable by pretty much any car. We also encountered a herd of free-ranging cattle. We saw some really beautiful forests and some absolutely incredible views. Honestly, this dirt road drive was like one of my favorite parts of the entire day. And ultimately, we did end up in the tiny little town of Cuba, New Mexico, which turns out is a Continental Divide trail town. We didn't get to spend any time there, but just for future reference, and if you are spending more time than we did, then you may be able to explore that a little bit. Just worth noting, there's a lot of other stuff to see in this area that we didn't have time for in just a single, like, partial day itinerary. I just hit some of the high points of this area, but if you want to explore further, I'm going to put some recommendations in the caption of this video as well as in the associated blog post, which I'll also link in the caption. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.